Hi and welcome to our first Sprue Talk Live. Today I'm joined by Matt.
Good evening.
Martin.
Good
and
evening.
Luke. Hi. Good evening. It's very warm in here, so forgive us. And this is also our first live that the Airfix team have ever done. We're also joined by a wonderful team behind the cameras.
Woo!
And we're working on collecting all your comments and questions as they stream in. So keep them coming in, and Brooke is collating them, and I'm putting them on my screen in front of me now. So apologies if we have any technical difficulties. It's easy for you to say. As I said, it is our first live. So I know Moz and some of the guys are pros, of course. You know, they do it daily or weekly, but this is all new. So introduce ourselves a little bit more. So my name's Dale. I'm the head of brand here at Airfix. Martin, who are you?
I'm Martin Ridge. I'm Airfix Development Manager.
My name's Matt Whiting, and I'm a senior designer at Airfix.
And I'm Luke Slaney Hewitt. I'm the researcher for Airfix.
Thanks, chaps, and thank you for joining me this evening.
No, pleasure.
Lives are always an odd one to try and schedule in because obviously working 9 till 5. Everyone else is at work just like we are, so the only real way of us doing this properly was to stay late here, treat the guys to a pizza or a cinnamon bun. Thank you, Paramjit, for those if you're watching. And then or the weekends. So we're here this evening. Okay, so let's go into some questions as this is a live Q&A. First question we've got here from John Wing says, when will I be able to get hold of the K2Y ambulance model? The release date has been revised a few times and it now says summer, which is a bit vague.
Yes.
It is a bit vague.
It is a bit vague.
We don't mean to laugh, but yes.
Yes.
I mean, I can answer that one. Shall I answer that one?
I can do it.
Go on then.
So we are subject to all the vagaries that we currently have about the shipping times from the Far East. People who follow the news have probably heard that the pandemic resulted in lots and lots of shipping containers being in the wrong parts of the world. And the cost of shipping has gone through the roof, and therefore now when you put your goods into a container in the Far East, we have absolutely no idea how long that container is going to take to get to the UK. And it may have a schedule of 4 or 5 weeks, but it tends to be unpredictable. What we're finding is that containers end up in other countries, or the ships carrying the containers go a really roundabout route now, and they just don't come here as quickly as they used to.
We had one last week that finally arrived that was due the week or so before, and it ended up diverting into Rotterdam, didn't it?
Yeah.
Just out of the blue. It was coming up the English Channel, and then it just went into Rotterdam. So, how we're meant to schedule that, the best thing that we can do is just get it on the container in the first place.
Yeah.
So, yes. So, John, it is, well, it's nearly done, isn't it? Our work's done.
Yeah,
Just waiting for the sample to sign
we
off.
think it will be here in July or early August, so hopefully that's true.
Yeah, we've got the test shot on the table today, built up test shot, excluding the X parts, which, Martin, I think you built this
I did.
as part of the R&D process.
I did.
So it is on its way, but thank you for answering that one, Martin. Go on to Dan Wood. Are kits like the Anson scarier to release? As you know, it would be mainly the enthusiasts that will buy it, and they tend to be most vocal about any perceived inaccuracies or issues. I'll hand it over to you two again, really. Matt, do you want to take that one? Is it your baby?
Yeah, I mean, I relish the challenge, really. Subjects like that are the sort of projects I love to sort of sink my teeth into. My wife will sort of attest to me sort of taking the piles of books home and sort of reading through them of an evening to make sure I'm as knowledgeable as anyone else is likely to be. So, yeah, I absolutely love researching about how the aircraft was built, all the engineering challenges that the original aviation engineers faced, and then all the changes that the airframes went through during their lives. So certainly, I think a big part of doing this job is having that passion for the subject, because otherwise you'd lose interest very quickly. And certainly I've been here for nearly 13 years now, so and I haven't lost interest yet. So it's certainly they're the sort of subjects that excite me the most, and hopefully the kit will go down nicely.
Well, this has been a real love of yours, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly the project was started in the middle of lockdown, so we were working from home. It was very, very difficult to access any research materials, but despite that, we actually managed to find a set of original Avro drawings via a very helpful group in Australia. Managed to get hold of various books from the States and various other places, and eventually it did all come together, and hopefully it will go down well.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
It's probably worth saying that these are the most difficult projects simply because there are so few existing aeroplanes still in museums, and those that are there are not very original. So it is a minefield.
I think it's also worth mentioning that even the new tool starter sets are really accurate with their detailing, aren't they? So the shape and everything is spot on. The Mark 5C Spitfire in our starter set, the CAD data for that, and the CAD data for the classic kit was one of the same thing, all through its shape. It's only at the point where we decided to split the part numbers down and make a starter set and a classic version did the CAD change. So in terms of shape and everything, it's still the same regardless of it being a starter set or not.
Yeah, I mean the Mark 5 Spitfire CAD is actually related to the same CAD assembly as the 24th scale Spitfire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the shape's the same, you just make it bigger or smaller.
And the same for quick build.
Yeah.
You know, which of course people often forget, but you know it's the same process for getting the shape of the model that we go through regardless of target market or scale.
It's probably worth saying that the starter kits are designed to be easy for beginners to put together, but they're also intended to be a satisfying, quick build for an experienced modeller,
Yeah.
where you do end up with a really realistic model. So yeah.
All right. Thank
Sorry
you.
guys, can I volume up just a little bit? Other people are saying.
Oh,
"Please,
volume up.
Volume up, please."
Okay, so next question. Dan Wood. Are there any schemes on a kit you'd love to do but haven't found enough reference material to do it properly? I'm going to go to Luke for this, even though, Luke, you've only been with us for about a year.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything like that? Remember to project your
Yeah,
voice.
I will do. Yeah. Yeah. So as soon as you ask the question, any specifics have gone out of mind. But when it comes to finding a scheme, you always come across. You'll plough through hundreds of potential schemes, and they'll all have their benefits. And you will find one or two that you think, wow, that's amazing, but you can only find one image. So one that actually comes to mind is on the new 24th scale Spitfire was the French scheme, which I believe is scheme D or E. And there's only one image, and it's a 3/4 view from behind in black and white, so interpreting the colours can be quite difficult sometimes. And it was amazing, you know, it's got really bright yellow, it ticked the boxes in terms of parts, so it had clip wings, which is a scheme we've been looking for. It was great, but normally it wouldn't meet the criteria to be included in the kit. So you'd want sort of 3 or 4 images of the same aircraft so you can accurately say certain parts are in the kit. So with the Spitfire, you'd need to see the rudder, you'd need to see the cannon fairings to see if it was a C or an E wing. Luckily, you could see some of that on this French scheme in particular, but normally you sort of err on the side of caution and you want to have as many reference pics as you can, but you also don't want to go too on the nose, because if there's lots of reference pics out there, a model has probably made that exact scheme 20 times over or seen 20 of those models at Telford or other shows. So it's finding a balance. But yeah, there's always ones that slip through the net just because they don't meet the criteria.
Yeah.
But there are there's certain schemes. I think it was one of the Blenheims where the pilot got a Victoria Cross,
Yes.
where it's a incredibly famous aircraft and there's a fantastic story behind it, but information is quite limited. So you kind of have to make an educated guess based on sort of accounts and what the camouflage scheme should be, and try and piece things together. Just to tell the story, really. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant.
And at that point, we try and include sort of a bit of history onto the box as well. So so you actually tell the story on the box front, and otherwise it might be lost to a less experienced modeller.
And there's more of that coming through. You told me there's more of these annotations on the box front. The HRS 1, FRS 1.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel sleepy after that. Domino's now. Just have a little nap.
Other pizzas are available.
Yeah, other pizzas are available. If Domino's wants to sponsor us, thank you very much. But so it's on the FRS 1, it's on the Swordfish this year,
Yeah.
It's been on the Blenheim before, I think, it's been on a few things, so there's more and more of those coming through as we try to not only replicate the decal artwork, which is always what we try to do, but the actual box illustration as well, and that tries to depict something that actually happened, which we've done for a long time, but haven't always annotated the box.
Oh, absolutely.
So thank you for your question there, Dan. On to Joe here. Will Airfix ever make the Airfix Club available in the United States? I'll answer that, Joe. It is available in the US, but the postage is not included. So if you go to our UK website, the .com website, you can sign up there. I think it costs around the £10-15 mark. And then once you've processed that transaction, you can then go and add the red box of goodies, and that will then be sent to you. So you're charged for the red box, and then you're charged for postage on top of that. And of course, that can vary depending on where you are around the world. And that was the fairest way of us doing Rest of the World Club memberships, because the postage cost for us varies so much around the world. To try and do a Rest of the World version that includes postage was no longer commercially viable for us, and slightly unfair to someone that lives in France that wants to be a member to someone that wants to that lives in Australia. So that's why we've split it like that. Equally, I'm sure another question is why our postage price is so high. I know that is something that the team is working on, but equally it's a global factor that we're all just having to deal with at the moment. So next question, Whole Man, how did y'all go about joining Airfix? So I guess that's not the club, but joining it as a company. Should we go oldest first?
Don't do that.
Should we go longest serving first? Sorry. Martin, how long have you been at Hornby for?
So this is my 31st year. I joined in 1991. I didn't expect to stay long, but here I still am. I guess like a lot of people, when you work with these products, you just get hooked. And so, if you get a sense of satisfaction from creating great models, whether they be trains, Scalextric cars, or Airfix, then you get hooked and you stay. I've actually been Scalextric development manager in the past as well, so when Hornby bought Airfix, it was a great fit for me, so I did both brands for a short time, and then just dropped Scalextric and moved over to Airfix completely.
So since 2006,
Yes,
you've been on Airfix?
yes, yeah.
I'm going to go Matt first, because obviously my first stint. So Matt,
Yeah, you started before me, but
I left.
you've not been here the whole time. So I've been here for nearly 13 years now. How did I get involved in Hornby? So I finished my industrial design degree from Loughborough, and one of the girls that I did my degree with got a job as a Scalextric designer, and I'd stayed in contact with her. A couple of years went by, I was made redundant, and then my friend contacted me to say that there's potentially a design vacancy at Hornby, which I was shocked that I hadn't even considered it, because it seemed like such a unique opportunity. Certainly I grew up making Airfix kits. We had a big Scalextric set we used to get down every Christmas. My dad had a model railway in the loft, so yeah, it was perfect company to get involved in. Came down here for an interview, and then, which I wasn't sure that it went that well, spent the next 6 weeks phoning the Hornby HR up, and eventually here I am. So stayed here ever since.
It was me who interviewed him, by the way.
We've got you to blame.
Yeah.
Luke, you've been here longer than I have. Second time around.
Second time around, yes. But I am the baby of the group. I've been here just 13 months, so just over a year. I grew up locally, so born in Canterbury, lived in Sandwich, and grew up sort of in the Hornby era, because I might not look it, but quite young. And I grew up coming to the visitor centre here in Margate, so it's a bit strange to be working here now, but was sort of hooked via my dad, who liked locomotives or trains, and converted him to the better onto planes and aircraft, helicopters. And yeah, I was working. I did my product design degree, so the same as the guys who designed kits. Did a few odd jobs, and then saw a job come up working for Hornby. A bit like Matt, I sort of had to pinch myself and think I'd never considered that as a career path. And then yeah, here I am. Not too much after that.
Yeah, and Martin, you interviewed Luke as well. So
I did.
you're
And
to
Matt
blame
as well.
Yeah, so you're to blame for Luke. Me, well, this is my second time here. So I joined Hornby in 2008, so 2 years after they took Airfix on. But I actually interviewed Hornby 2006, 2007. Didn't get the job. And then they phoned me up a year later and said, "Do you still fancy it?" And I said yes. So and I've worked in sales / marketing before joining the business, and have built a career up ever since, really. And then for the last 8 years, I've been off doing other things, and I've come back. So yeah, so that's me, really. It's nice to see some familiar faces when I walk through the doors,
Yeah.
but some looking a little bit older than before. But yeah, so that's us. That's us.
Yeah, he says you look a little bit older.
Who, me? It's the beard. It took me the whole of lockdown to grow this. Right, next question. We'll try and rattle through these. Pete's Plastic Playground, and I think there's quite a few on here from you, Pete. Hi, Airfix, what chance of vintage classics being issued as bag kits with cardboard headers for old time's sake? Well, we've done header card bags a little while ago, didn't we? We did the BTK,
Spitfire.
the blue Spitfire, a little while ago. It was a bit of a special, didn't we? So it's not off the cards. I think for us to put a larger kit in a bag would be quite tricky now. And of course, we're also conscious of our retailers and how they display them. Most will just stack them on a shelf. I guess if you go that far back to bag kits, Woolworths were just hanging them on a hook. I'll look at you, Martin. Sorry. Woolworths were just hanging on a hook or a clip strip. So
I can remember buying them from Woolworths from a hook.
There you are.
Yes.
Yeah. So
They were delivered by horse and cart.
no. So I guess why don't we do that anymore? The retail has changed. And only the other day I was having a conversation about a national retailer and how we can get our starter sets on a clip strip on the end of a gondola, and that becomes quite difficult because the products are larger in boxes. So we might do something in vintage classics in a bag again. You never know. Watch this space.
It would be really interesting to see the locate and cement style instructions.
Would it? Would Richard, our instruction guy, who, if you're watching, Richard, g'day, would he like you for that or not? No. So yeah, I think that answered Peter Andrews' Facebook comment as well. One of the same thing. Next, Paul Newton. I wonder if you might ever consider entering the 1/32 scale aircraft market. There's a lot of scope for interesting subjects.
Shall I?
Yeah, go on, Martin. Yeah.
So 1/32 is something that we've considered quite a lot. We kind of don't consider it our scale because we do 1/24. Now, obviously, one's bigger than the other. Where I think we've really talked around 1/32 is for subject matter that would be too big at 1/24 scale. So post-war jets come to mind immediately for that. We haven't taken that step yet, but it's possible that we might in the future.
There you are. Yep. Thanks, Martin. Thank you, Paul, for your question. Nigel Bailey, do you think that Airfix will ever produce a 1/24 scale heavy B-17 or B-24 or Lancaster? Well, of course, for our April Fools this year, we did say we was going to do a 1/24 scale Lancaster, and then received quite a few comments off the back of that. And I guess we've we've designed quite a bit of the Lancaster through the Spitfire. Well, I say quite a bit, the Merlin engine, and a few other instrument panels, I dare say. But personally, I would love to see some heavy bombers in 1/24 scale. But I hate to think how much that will retail for, how much the tooling would cost here, and also how long that would take to design. So, guys, how long did it take for the Spitfire to design it?
It's getting on for a year.
So, design a year, engineering tooling for 6 months or
A
so.
bit more, yeah.
So, 18 months just for the Spitfire. Times that by 4, 5 for a Lancaster, even more most probably, based on the interior detail that you'd have to do throughout the model. So for us, it's not really an area that we want to go into at the moment. Although I'll keep on nagging
us.
the guys. I think at the moment we would much rather do a series of 1/24 scale fighter aircraft or some other larger super kits, not necessarily aircraft, and then and just turn them over and see what happens in the future. But it'd be nice to bring the 1/24 scale Mosquito back into the range. It hasn't been available for a little while now, has it? So maybe we'll see that come back in a few years' time. It's not in the plan, just before you all get excited, but maybe, well, one day it definitely will come back.
Yeah,
But-
absolutely.
So thank you, Nigel. Bill Clark, a question on plastic quality. The 48 scale Meteor F8 was in a pale blue plastic, softish plastic, yet the FR9 was in grey, and apparently a slightly harder plastic. He assumes the same tool was used, so why the difference in plastic? So first question really is, was there a difference in plastic that you were aware of?
Yeah, there may have been, because the Meteor's been made in the UK and in India,
Okay,
so that would probably account for the difference in the plastic.
yep. And I know we're working on plastic formulations in India, aren't we, at the moment, with
Yeah,
our
we
with
are.
our
Yeah.
suppliers out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's something we're working on, and as evident, the team are aware of it. So yeah. Another one from Bill Clark. Who decides on colour schemes? Must be tricky. Luke?
That would be me. Which sometimes is joy, sometimes it's absolute hell, depending on the subject and whether you can find the right reference picture. But it's not just me. We do sort of sound them through the team. What do you think of this scheme? And it is a team effort to come up with appropriate schemes. But some of the legwork falls to me.
All of the legwork falls to
All the Lego.
But it's important to talk to the designers as well, because I know coming in and only being here for a year, I'm joining projects halfway through, so I'm not up to date with some of the more complex parts of the projects that the designers are, because they've researched it themselves through COVID. So it's good to talk to them, and they can make you aware of certain things to watch out for in terms of parts that need to be on any potential scheme.
Are there any? And I'm guessing. Well, I'll ask the question. Are there any kits that, when you start off design, you've already got some schemes in mind?
Oh yeah.
So therefore, the design and what's included in that is actually governed by the one or two schemes that we definitely want to do.
Yeah, it's really important for us, because especially some aircraft where there's a lot of variation in small parts, different carburetor intakes, different rudders, different you've really got to design it knowing what schemes you want to achieve at the end. Otherwise there's a danger that you've got this beautifully designed model, but you haven't got the parts you need to do the schemes that you think people really want and will really go well.
Yeah.
So it's fundamental right from the beginning of the process to know within reason what schemes you're trying to cover off.
Yeah. We go on, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah, and certainly that can affect the way that the tooling is designed as well. You may have the idea of doing several different schemes that are going to be unique releases, but then down the line you might end up wanting to put a scheme in the box that uses parts from different parts of the tool that you can't put in the same box together. So certainly it really helps to know what schemes you want to potentially do for the next 2 or 3 releases, so that you can set up the tooling in the correct way.
Yeah. And we was having a conversation. I say we, the 3 of us, was having a conversation the other day about a particular aircraft and some decal schemes, and we found some really cool looking colourful decal schemes, but the aircraft never flew with a particular armament to it, which is included in the kit. So it was sort of a case of, do we want to do those really cool decal schemes, which are rarely seen, but you won't be able to use all the parts in the kit, or what? So sometimes we have to compromise. I can't remember where we got to on that one, actually.
I can't quite remember, but
we went around all over the place.
It works the other way as well, in that rather than the kit limiting you, sometimes, well, I suppose it does, you'll find one amazing scheme, but you're going to have to tool up extra parts just to do that one extra, and you sort of have to then look at it from a commercial aspect and work out, well, am I going to sell that many more to justify that extra cost?
Yeah.
Does everyone else find that scheme as fun and amazing as me? And quite often the answer's no in my case, but
it's a bit harsh.
He does get overruled quite a lot.
Yeah, we do tell him to his face. So hopefully that answers your question there, Bill. It's not an easy job, but we've got the guy for the job. So Ollie 5050. If a kit manufacturer is producing the same scale aircraft but in different scales, the same aircraft, sorry, but in different scales, do they tend to just scale up and down the tool? I love the phrase scaling up and down. Or do they make a whole new tool for the aircraft in the new scale? Well, that's simple, isn't it? Matt, do you want to answer that one? Because scaling up and down as a phrase is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. So we have done quite a few subjects in 2, even 3 scales. So usually we'll start with the same external shapes. So your wings, fuselage, your engine nacelles. Those basics, what we call surfaces, can be scaled up or down. But with injection moulding, the limitations of what you can mould are the same in all the scales. So you might find a part that worked really nicely in 1 to 72nd scale would become too thick in a bigger scale, so you'd have to split it up into more smaller parts. So although the original shape data can be used in different scales, you have to go back and re-engineer all of the individual parts to suit the moulding process. And obviously in bigger scales you need more detail, so you'd have more rivet detail, smaller parts in your cockpit that you'd have as individual parts rather than being moulded together. So as you go up the scales, you have to put a lot more work into creating a set of parts that you can successfully mould.
Yeah, can you imagine a joystick in a 72nd scale aircraft just scaled up to 24 scale? I mean, it would be amazing if we could just do that and job done, but it would look massive and just completely wrong. So thanks for that. So
it's worth adding, sorry. The only thing that normally stays consistent is the research. So say you wanted to scale down or up, the same subject, you've already done the research, but sometimes you then, say you're going up to the bigger scale, you're going to 48th, you find out actually what sufficed at 72nd isn't cutting the mustard at 48th, and you actually then have to do more. So it is a new product almost all the way through.
Yeah,
and certainly in a bigger scale you might want to put more options in, because it becomes more practical to separate things up into more individual parts. Certainly in the case of the Buccaneer, recently we've had to do more research because we wanted to put more options for different weapons that weren't practical at the smaller scale. So that involves more research and more original CAD work.
if only it was just Shift F4 for 48 scale and Shift F2 for 24 scale. Unfortunately, it's not. Or else the Spitfire wouldn't have taken us 12 months to design, I guess.
Exactly.
So a special shout out here I've got on my screen to Graham Slingsbury. Happy birthday, Graham. That's it. Shout out.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Next question, William Thomas. Why do you not include pilots in all kits? Martin.
So yes, pilots expensive. So it's not easy to design a pilot in CAD. It can be done, and there are programs that enable you to sculpt in 3D. But it's a tricky and very specialised business. What we tend to do is to put a pilot in if we think that the model's likely to be used in a gift set, where it may go on a stand and would look ridiculous with the wheels up and no pilot. So, yeah, basically. But also the difficulty is that as models get more detailed, the cockpit becomes very bespoke, and trying to make one pilot fit all models like they used to in the old days is really, really difficult. And so we find that we're having to redesign a pilot for every model that we make so that he'll fit the seat properly, and grip the controls and look realistic, especially at the bigger scales. Although occasionally people do complain about not having pilots, we're noticing that, and this came across particularly at 24th scale in the past, where we went to great trouble and expense to put pilots in the Mosquito, for instance, and the Typhoon. When we went to Telford, we didn't see a lot of painted up pilots. And so, yes, there will be people out there who miss the pilots, but actually we don't see a lot of people painting and putting the pilot in the model when we do include it.
Yeah, so extra cost really for what we're seeing is not necessarily being used, but we understand that there are people out there using it. It just depends on the scale, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So thank you, William. Next question, Thanos. Any possibilities for any HAF special planes or stickers? HAF?
Hellenic Air Force. So yes, there are some cracking schemes out there, and we will consider them as and when a model comes up for review that will allow it. So it's making sure we have the right parts in the model. So where we're quite British centric sometimes, export aircraft or stuff that's gone abroad can sometimes have modifications, and from an accuracy point of view, you have to really look at it and think, well, is that scheme worth compromising the accuracy of the kit? And there are some cracking schemes that we want to put on there, but something you just can't do it. But they do come up, and we do consider them. So yeah, it's always nice to have something that isn't British or Commonwealth related, something that we wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. Next question, Moz. Hi Moz, welcome. Thanks for your support. Are you looking at resin printers as a future market, i.e. create a model which comes with the files that allows people to print their own add-ons or parts? This was a bit of a discussion when I came back in August, wasn't it? So I don't know.
We have considered it.
We have,
and we think that it would work particularly well for some models where underwing stores were carried in, lots of different stores were carried, and it starts to get quite expensive to put every possible weapon in the kit. We do try, but some subjects have so many different weapons options that it just becomes a bit too much. And so, yeah, we're very aware that people have got 3D printers at home, and it's a possibility in the future that we might issue some CAD.
Yeah. We must have CAD of, absolutely tons of.
Yeah, we've certainly got some good ideas of things that we can offer. We've got. I was involved in making quite a sort of extensive but sensible list of possible things routes we could go down. So yeah, watch this space, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Moz. Adam, Airfix, at Airfix, I've noticed on many recent releases that there are minor errors that are traceable to the individual with plane. that was scanned. How is Airfix planning to mitigate the issue in future releases? Well, he mentioned scanning, and it's a research question.
Yeah,
So
happy to take it. Hi, Adam. Yes, yeah, I can sort of work out what you're talking about there. So the one that people might have seen was the mosquito. I think we can probably say that. We scanned the one at Cosford. Predates me a little bit, but just to get that in there. But so the problem with museum exhibits, as I'm sure you're aware, is that, and as Martin said earlier, they're not often original, and especially if they've stayed in service for a time after the period where you're trying to depict an aircraft, such as the Mosquito, they can have modifications. So the one at Cosford was a target tug after the war, and it's very easy to scan something and take it as gospel, really, and assume that the shape's right. The way you get around that is by sort of widening your search and making sure you're aware that you shouldn't trust any one particular source. So where we can, we try and get scans, and we also now try and get drawings in addition to. It used to be that you'd sort of work from drawings or just scans. We try and combine as much as we can, as well as period photos are so useful. And talking to people that worked on aircraft, Mosquito is a bit hard, but more recent post-war stuff is a bit easier. So it's all about broadening your net and making sure you go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, using as much information as you can. And I know it's something we've really put effort into over the last year to try and sort of stop any of these things slipping through the net. But at the end of the day, we're all human, so mistakes happen. It's just trying to minimise the risk of that happening at some point.
Yep.
I want to just say on that as well that we had a rookie designer working during lockdown at home. We had no full-time researcher at the point that the model was designed, so things were against us a bit on that.
that was COVID.
Yeah, so we are human and we do make mistakes sometimes. Actually, we make a lot of mistakes, but the trick is to check everything over and over again and make sure that we find them. But you have to find huge amounts of time to do that.
And that's why we always go to the prototype staging as well.
Yeah.
Before we ever cut any steel for the tool, we always, regardless of how expensive it is, we always get a 3D prototype made. And the guys are, checking that, and will quite often change, some lugs for fitting and bits and pieces. I was talking to Chris the other day about the Spitfire and how that changed after the prototype stage, because it wasn't as solid once you put it together. There was a couple of lugs, like location lugs, that just needed added. So, okay, next question. Next question from Sally Donald. Hello, Sally. We all know what biscuits you like. Maybe I should have read this question before I started reading it out loud. But what sauce do you have on your bacon sarnie? Brown or red? That is the question. Quick fire round. Matt.
Mayonnaise and red ketchup.
Barbecue.
Red. Little bit. Not a lot.
No sauce for me.
No sauce.
For me.
Thank you for your question, Sally. Next question. Jonathan. Where have all the acrylic pots gone? So I'll answer that question. So the Humbrol team, we are not the Humbrol team. The Humbrol team are moving the acrylic paint range over to dropper bottles. So those screw top plastic pots have essentially been discontinued, and everything is moving over to the dropper bottles. The next part of his question is: can we have a 1/48 scale F4U Corsair in Fleet Air Arm markings? Well, you can, but we can't promise when or if we'll ever do it. So yeah,
the list of subjects is endless, and
There's
it's
loads of stuff.
where that fits in. So I'm sure we'll get round to it, but it might be the next 20 or 50 years. So just hold tight.
Keep supporting us by buying other product, basically. That's what I always say, because if everyone stops buying product, we're never going to release anything new. So another question by Danger Mouse. Well, Danger Mouse is messaged in. Hello, Danger Mouse. Have you ever thought about producing civil emergency service vehicles in 1/24 scale?
Wow. So this is really a question about diversification of the range and the difficulties of trying to cover loads and loads of different subject matter off. Yes, there are people out there who would like 1/24 scale emergency services vehicles. I've no doubt about that. But unfortunately for us, in our desire to do more varied product, we have to think about this in commercial terms. And there are other subjects that will always sell better for us and enable us to then go back and develop more subjects. So very difficult, that kind of very sympathetic to your plea for, more varied subject matter, but it is really difficult to achieve from a commercial point of view.
Eric Chapman, hello. Plastic figures. Airfix led the way many years ago, and they were big business, and there are big business nowadays. But where's Airfix in the ranking now? Let's expand the range. You can do it. Regards, Eric. Well, I guess we did lead it many moons ago. We did lead the figure range, but as Martin alluded to earlier, figures are really expensive to sculpt and really expensive to tool as well. Far more expensive than the equivalent aircraft. Very specialist. So we have done some figures. I was here when we did the 48 scale Herrick figures. And as we said earlier, we have done some new 24 scale figures within Hornby's time as well. But I guess ultimately it comes down to the commercials, and can we sell enough of those figures to pay for that tooling and then start to make a profit? And at the moment, we don't believe we could, in all honesty. So we'd love to do more, but it just comes down to the commercials. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question. Am I going to the large text there, Brooke?
Jimmy Murray.
Jimmy Murray. How about separate decal sheets for more options but keeping costs down? Well, that's certainly something that we've discussed.
It is.
So yes. Thank you for the suggestion. That's certainly something that is a discussion point in the office quite recently. So something that we'll consider, definitely. Ed Bartz, you guys are fortunate enough to work for Airfix, but I have to ask, do you also build models? And if so, what's your preferred scales and genders? Matt?
Yeah, I've actually recently got back into doing a bit of model making. So I grew up building models. I built quite a few models while I was at university as well. Actually, I got into making 1/24 scale racing cars. But more recently, I've been more drawn to the smaller scales, so 1/144, 1/72, and particularly just small little kits. So like World War I biplanes, things like the Handy Page Heracles have really drawn my attention, just because they're sort of quite small projects that I can just do a little bit of an evening, just keep plodding along with it, but it's not such a massive project that I think it's going to take me the next 6 months to make any progress. So it's just sort of something nice to just keep my hand in the sort of painting side of modelling rather than just the gluing bits together side. So yeah, I do enjoy a bit of modelling in my spare time.
You don't do anything, do you?
I don't do a lot. I mean, I do try and build every model that we develop, because I think it's important I do that. And one of the things that I do is to do a final check on the instructions by building the model. I've actually spent more of my life building all sort of flying models than I have plastic kits, if I'm absolutely honest. But hey, there you go.
A lot of our designers, well, all of our designers will of course build their kits as part of the design process. Richard, our instruction illustrator, he designs, he builds all the models as part of that instruction process as well, doesn't he? So he's quite often the second person in the world to build a new tool item. Luke, I know you do a bit of modelling. I've tried to do a bit of modelling at home.
Plastic modelling, or
Yeah,
just
yeah, plastic modelling. Maybe sort of Argos ad scenes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I when I came back into the hobby through working at Airfix, I did sort of start building. It's great, we get 50% off in the shop, so that's always good. Just to be more in touch with what the designers were saying to me, and also I'm quite keen to build the projects that I've worked on. So being here only for a year, there's nothing really that I've seen from concept through to delivery. But when that does happen, I want to be able to build it and say I worked on or helped work on that part. So
Yeah. Paramjit, some of you may know Paramjit, one of our Airfix designers. He's constantly building models at home. It's his hobby, it's his passion, which is great to have someone in the office that constantly does that. Really handy actually for us. I occasionally will build a model at home as well. But in all honesty, I must admit, when I get home, I sort of want to get away from it a little bit. So, yeah, occasionally I will build a model. Scour Hanger asks, what is the vision of Airfix for the future? And more general, how do you see the future of the hobby? I'm asking more the approach to new technologies that we have.
it's not quite quick fire, that one, is it?
It's not very quick fire question there, Scale Hanger, but thank you. The vision for Airfix future, I must admit, I think what we've got on the table today is very much the vision of the future. We've got some amazing kits coming through this year. We've got some amazing kits coming through next year, and I'd love to tell you what they are, but you're going to have to wait for those. Yeah, I mean, we haven't expanded the design team yet, have we? We keep on pushing.
No,
Maybe one day
one day.
we'll add some more people.
Well, one of the difficulties for us is that the better it gets, in other words, the more effort that you put into making the design better, both from a build quality point of view and a detail point of view, the longer it actually takes. Yeah, we're probably not releasing as much as we might have done sometimes in the recent past. But that's because the model's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess future as well. We're constantly challenging our tool makers to be better, so that will naturally improve. And I'm sure if you opened a box now of a kit that we designed and tooled up when back in 2008, and compare it to something that's just come out now, then they are quite different, both in terms of their the detail and the way it's tooling and the textured parts, etc. etc. So I think that's certainly the future for us. I'd love to look at new ranges, new categories, but again that falls down that commercial trap. But sometimes you have to take those risks. The second part of that question really is how do we see the future of the hobby? I don't know if you guys have got any comments on that. And there's a lot of 3D printing going on at the moment, but that is very specialist and very expensive to get into properly, isn't it?
It's getting cheaper.
Yeah.
And probably faster as well. I mean, there's huge advantages to 3D printing in terms of the design of the components, because you don't have to mould it in a mould that opens and shuts. It really releases the potential to design parts in a completely different way, and parts that are thicker and more solid is possible as well. There's no doubt it will change the hobby going forward at some point. The technology will get cheaper, it will get faster. I don't think it'll ever get fast enough that you'll buy a bag of 3D printed parts, but I think people will be 3D printing parts at home from CAD data that people like us supply.
Yeah, and certainly some of the aftermarket, the companies that had been offering resin add-in parts, a lot of them are offering direct 3D printed parts instead of the resin, because it's more reliable, there's less shrinkage, the moulds don't wear out. So certainly that side of the hobby, I think, will certainly go down the 3D printing route, and the resin will kind of die out.
Yeah. Just quickly, last on this, I was going to come to you actually, and it's the way that 3D scanning has transformed how part of our research and development process. So, when I was here before, so 2008, 2010, 2013, it was around 2012. I remember someone turning up in the car park with a 3D printer, 3D scanner, and going, "Oh, we can 3D scan this car," and a lot of designers went out there and sort of did it, looked at the data, and went, "Yeah, false alarm," walked away. But now, pretty much, well, wherever we can, we will 3D scan it, won't we? So that's certainly changed it.
Yeah, it's it's something we've been doing for a while now. The way we've scanned has changed recently. We've got more flexibility over what we scan. So I think the Heinkel was the first we were talking about this earlier. Matt,
Yeah, back in 2013, the Heinkel HE111.
Yeah, and it took a whole day.
It was a weekend.
A weekend,
Yeah.
sorry, to scan it. Whereas now we'll scan an aircraft of a similar size in a couple of hours. And in fact, we were helping the RAF Museum not too long ago, and we scanned their whole War in the Air hangar to help them plan their aircraft movements, and that took 2 days. So rather than one aircraft, we scanned 20 odd. So
And the hangar walls
and the hangar and everything. So
and the car park.
and the car park, and then got myself about 20 different times in different positions. So yeah, that's a great part of it. But I think generally the hobby is sort of in a golden era. People look at sort of the 60s and 70s as being the best time for modelling. But if you look at what's about now in terms of kit quality, but also competition, so some of the stuff coming out of Eastern Europe is amazing, and that makes us push ourselves.
Yeah.
We see those kits and we want to beat them or be on par with them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's great.
And it's not just the actual kit side of it, it's the finishing side as well, the advancements I've seen there. It's gone are the days if you've got your sort of tin Humbrol enamels and a jar of white spirit, you've got all your different acrylics, lacquers, you've got different weathering powders, different texture mediums. It's the advancements on that side of things is quite mind-blowing, really.
Next question, Moz again. Please, can we have more space models? Moz, we've answered that question before, like SpaceX or Blue Dragon. We would love to do more space stuff. The big question for us really is, what do we do and when? We were only talking in the car on Monday, Martin and I, about space subjects and when would be the right time to look at doing something. And really, it has to be something big has happened, i.e. we've put people on the moon again, or we've gone to Mars, or something like that, something that's really big. And that's why Saturn V has always done really well for us, and the module, the moon module, and bits and pieces. So really, it's wait till then. Also, a lot of the SpaceX and Blue Dragon rockets are still in development. So for us to get scan, they're never going to let us scan it. To get that shape and everything, we can have a really good stab at it. But the product, the item itself, is constantly evolving. So it would be a real shame to design and tool something, and then 6 months later it no longer looks like that. So that's always a danger with space subject. Next question, Graham Walker. More Royal Navy ships, 1701 350th, please. Well, we'll take that on board, Graham. Thank you very much. We did have a 350th HMS Queen Elizabeth carrier. That was a scratch-built model that we took to a show many years ago that we've still got kicking around here, and it's surprising how big that is in 350th. We'd love to do it, but I don't think, in all honesty, commercially, it would pass the regulations here. So
certainly, Paramjet in our team he's a big fan of ship modelling, so he would jump at the chance to get his hands on.
He's always listing some ships, isn't he? So
he's always buying ship models.
He's always buying ship models, thanks to me and Luke, because we constantly egg him on a little bit. So. So yeah, we'll take that on board. Thank you, Graham, and thank you, Moz, for your suggestion there as well. Is it possible to bring more delicacy and finesse to panel lines of your aircraft models? Well,
I'll take it.
yeah, cool. Yeah.
So this is something obviously we want to do because, nobody takes so much care over the design of a product for it to be thought of badly by consumers because it's got panel lines that are less than optimal when compared to our competitors' models. The difficulty for us is that it's all about making the molds. We can design the panel lines to be really narrow, really sharp, not very deep, exactly how we want them. The difficulty is finding tool makers that can translate that into a mould that produces a model with the panel lines really fine. It's a very, very specialised business, and you don't just Google tool makers and find somebody who can do it. So I would have to say there seems to be a shortage of tool makers in the world that can do this, that have experience of it, and we're struggling a bit to find them. They obviously exist. We know that from our competitors' models. We're getting there slowly. We're trying to get our existing tool makers to understand what we want and to try and create it. And we think we're getting there slowly. I think when this Anson comes to market, you'll see something that's perhaps better than you've seen before. So, yeah, it's a big thing for us. We know it. We know that that's what people want. And we're trying really hard because it's kind of like the one thing that we haven't really got our ability to get sorted, and it's frustrating for me as the development manager that we haven't done it. So we are working on that all of the time.
Yeah. I pointed at the Anson and you said the Anson. The Anson is amazing panel line wise, and we'll release more photos and all the details of the Anson in the next couple of months. We've got a special event going on here with some visitors, and I'm sure off the back of that event there'll be loads of materials on the Anson. Next question, Pilot Dongo. Are you ever going to release some sort of massive capital letters 1/12 scale aircraft as a one-time and limited edition release? No.
And the reason we say no is because it would be very expensive to create, and a one-time limited release would not return anything on our investment. So it's just not a commercially sensible thing to do.
Yep.
And if we did, I'd get fired, basically.
Swan song. 31 years. And also, where would people put it? I mean, they're complaining at the size of the 24 scale of the Spitfire. But anyway. Next question. Well, actually, it's a shout out to brothers Charlie and Leon. 11 and 8 years old, watching. Apparently, they're making the Bristol Beaufort. So, is that one of yours, Matt?
Yes.
They are?
Yeah.
Matt designed that?
Yeah, it'd be great to get some pictures sent in onto the website if you are able to. Once you've finished, it'd be great to see.
Yep, so wherever you shouted out from, or go onto our Facebook page, or get your parents to do it, and send us the messages, the photos. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Basil Bean, Airfix decals for new releases are superb. Thank you, Basil. But why are the vintage classics the same incomplete decals? Are there any plans to improve them? I guess what you mean by incomplete decals is perhaps not the same level of detail in them.
And it's something that we're aware of, and it's a bit of a balancing act. So me and Martin talk quite regularly, and our decal artist is always pushing to add to the vintage classics. There's a certain amount of nostalgia that comes with vintage classics, so you don't want to alter something that someone might want to build the kit they built in 1970 exactly as it was. And then if you go and start changing it, then you've ruined their experience. But equally, it would be nice to cater to both and have a really up-to-date model.
Yeah,
there we go.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Basil. JT, any plans to work with museums for kits? Something like a reissue with specific decals for a museum piece with proceeds going to the museum. So we already do that, JT. So we already work with the Imperial War Museum, HMS Belfast. Proceeds of that go to the Imperial War Museum. We've worked with a number of museums in the past, and they tend to get free models as a result, and we will do their decal options or that particular aircraft, and that's quite an in thing, isn't it? So the Sabre, one of the Sabre releases,
Yes.
the 48 scale Sabres.
So yeah, so the Sabre that we've just released, the F40 version, so the second release from that tooling, actually shows a Norwegian aircraft, and that's the aircraft that we scanned. And it's mentioned in the instructions as well, and they got free kits as part of that deal as well. So it's nice to show off their scheme because it's a great aerobatic aircraft, and it's the one that we actually went and visited. So no excuses for getting the scheme wrong,
Yeah.
really. But
And we do that a lot, don't we? You know, we'll replicate scheme A or B will certainly be the aircraft that we've gone out and scanned or partnered with the museum that holds that aircraft to do the research, and we support them in a number of ways. How much of a barrier is having a new kit produced? So having a new kit produced is an aircraft having no surviving examples to scan. Many types I'd love to see, but none are around today. Have we got any examples of that we can talk about?
Manchester jumps out as one.
Well, the one that we did recently was the Whitley. Obviously, there's not a full Whitley in existence, but we were able to find enough background information, so drawings, manuals, period photographs, so that we could collate enough research to enable us to do a decent job with the kit. So yeah, it's not something that would put us off as long as we could find alternatives.
Yeah, but scanning is not the be all and end all. I mean,
No,
it's a relatively new thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
exactly. We were never able to do it in the past, so we've always had other means of creating the shapes and doing the detailing.
and in actual fact, the Spitfire was never scanned.
No,
The 124 Spitfire would never use scanned data. It was always previous research and actual manufacturer's drawings, wasn't it?
Mm.
So.
yeah.
So it doesn't put us off, providing we can get the data another way, I think is the caveat to that.
There are subjects that we would love to do that we haven't because we can't get enough data.
Yeah.
And as we put more detail into models and make them more accurate, that does get harder. So yeah, tricky at times.
Next one. Apparently we're getting loads of requests in for a big 124 scale Spitfire update and delivery dates. Do you want to... I can take that?
You can take that if you wish. Or
We'll go-
go on.
Oh yeah,
Tell
we
me.
had a meeting about it on Monday, didn't we?
We did.
With what we're doing about it. Are we ready to tell people where it's going to be made?
It's up to you. You're the brand manager.
So the big 124 scale Spitfire is going to be made in the UK. So the tooling is almost complete. And then we'll ship that here to the UK, and production of that will be done here in the UK. So we're working to a September delivery date for physical stock. But as Martin mentioned at the beginning of this video, container dates. We can get the tools and everything on a container, and we'll be given a rough delivery date for that container. But outside of that, it's sort of out of our control. And then, of course, there's a number of things to do when that tool arrives in the UK and get it up and running. And, of course, the decals and the box artwork and the instructions and everything else that goes with it all needs to pull together to hit that date. But we're pretty good on all that material at the moment, aren't we? It's just the I think the instructions are almost complete.
Yep.
And then and getting that tooling here to the UK. So exclusive for you for this video. The Spitfire will be made in the UK. Next question. Any chance of hangars or other aircraft buildings to make dioramas? It would be nice, but not on our radar at the moment, in all honesty. I think there are quite a few suppliers of kits of various scales for those items. So I think for the moment we'll just leave it with with those guys and focus on the wonderful things you see in front of us on the table. Alan here, any talks or shows planned for Ireland? Not at the moment, in all honesty. We're going to 4 shows this year in the UK. We'll be at React. We're going to Bournemouth Air Festival or Airfest again for the first time in many years. We are doing we're actually doing 2 Duxford events, and then Scale Model World. So 4 in total, but various sizes, and then Scale Model World in November. So nothing in Ireland just yet. But I'm sure if you send us an invite for a particular show, then I'll have a look at it and have a pint of Guinness on the side ready for me. It'd be lovely. Michael Hanley here, first time viewer. Number of folks from Ireland. Ditto on above about coming to some shows in Ireland soon. It'd be great. Great show, by the way. Very factual. Well, thank you very much. Very factual, guys. And so that's 2 pints of Guinness we'll be go over now. So me and Luke will be happy.
Very.
Yeah.
Need a few more than 2.
Yeah, I know you do. Jeff72, Airfix, would you consider travelling to IPMS Ireland? What's happened? Annual show in Dublin in September, please. I would love to, and maybe I'll bend the ear of my manager here, and we might be able to send someone over. But at the moment, there are no plans to. Heathrow spotter Sam. Any plans to build any more helicopters? Perhaps a Chinook and Apache. Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? A Chinook or an Apache.
Indeed.
We like our British helicopters.
We do like our helicopters.
There's
yeah.
a bit of a myth that helicopters don't sell, and that's not really true.
Yeah.
You know, that they return good numbers. We like them in the team. So yeah.
Yeah.
Watch this space. As with the Corsair, we'll get round to them.
Yep. Mike Williams, given the almost constant interest in Star Wars films, are there any plans for kits from the movie or series? No, there aren't any plans. It's a huge license for us to enter, and it's certainly not a cheap license for us to enter. And there's a couple of model manufacturers out there already who have that exclusive license. So it's a no from us, I'm afraid, at the moment. Jeff72 again, looking forward to the release of the Anson. Would you consider producing aftermarket alternative decals for her? Excuse me. Well, we won't produce any aftermarket decals. We'll leave that to the aftermarket. And as per our usual schedule for kits, you know, it'll be in the range for a couple of years. We'll drop it out and we'll rotate the decal schemes. We'll do that with the Anson, won't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the things that I find really interesting about the Anson is how many different nationalities it flew with, and certainly the kit was designed to offer enough options to give us lots of scope in the future for including lots of different weird and wonderful schemes. Certainly, there was a comment I noticed earlier about Portuguese schemes, and I have found some quite nice pictures of a Portuguese Anson, so maybe that's one we can put in.
Yeah. Next question. With the increase in your 48 scale range of kits, understandable with the demand for detail, will you consider those less fortunate with space, finance, and think about 72nd scale versions like the Hunter F4? Well, yes, we do. I mean, we do consider it, don't we? It just so happens that this year was quite a 148 scale heavy year for us with those 3 releases and then the 72nd scale Meteor. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that at the moment.
Well, obviously the Meteor is a scale down of the previous 1 to 48 scale model, so yeah, certainly it's something for the future. There's plenty of good subjects that we've covered that would work really nicely in a smaller scale.
Yeah, we certainly haven't forgotten about 72nd scale at all.
Yeah, we're very aware when it comes to future range planning that some years are heavier in certain scales, so 48 for this year, but you know, we do try and correct that as well as fitting into certain categories. So you know, we try and tick off Second World War, post-war, and other eras. We also look at the scale. It's very easy to get carried away and put everything into one scale, but we're aware that some of you only build one or the other. So we keep you in mind.
The other thing it's worth talking about is starter sets. So aviation in starter sets is 1/72nd scale. Starter sets are really important to us because they're really important for the future of the hobby. And we've been very aware in recent times that highly detailed, tricky models with lots of very small parts are not really suitable for starter sets. So in recent times you'll have seen that we started to create this range of specifically designed for beginners models, which is swallowing up quite a lot of design time. So it means that the enthusiast models fit in both 72nd and 48th. Perhaps we're not doing as many as we have done in the recent past, but that's why, really.
Thank you. Tony here, what is the one kit you'd make if there was no budgetary or necessity to make money from it? I don't know.
I don't know.
124.
We've never thought about it.
124 scale Lancaster would be
be
amazing.
I'll go one more. We'll go 124 scale B36. If money and
Cheers,
sensibilities, no object.
So yeah, well, I'd love to do a 124 scale Lancaster. I'd love to do a 124 scale Phantom, Buccaneer maybe. I think the detail in the Buccaneer in 48 scale, in 24 scale, that would be amazing. I'll keep on chipping away at the guys and see if we can.
Yeah.
Anything from you guys?
I'd love to go down the route of doing some nice sort of Schneider Trophy race planes from the sort of 20s and 30s. There's some absolutely stunning designs.
Yeah.
I love the Interwar RAF biplanes. We don't do enough of those, and they're lovely.
You're quite often at Shuttleworth, aren't you?
I am.
There you are.
Yeah.
So that's not it on the questions. I was just going to skim through some, and you've seen one, Luke. So go on.
Just the Sterling one, worth mentioning.
So shall I'll ask the question.
You go.
Roger Davis.
Hello, Roger.
Hello, Roger. Also, so there was another question from you, Roger. Why has Airfix not produced a new mould Sterling? The first heavy bomber I had. Are you planning on doing so? Over to you, Luke.
We're not planning on doing it. Sorry, Roger, and other people that might want it. But we're aware, and it sort of harks back to the question about how much of a barrier is not having an actual example in the museum to doing the kit. So it might factor into our decision slightly. How easy is it to research? It's worth saying we did scan part of a Sterling not too long ago to help a charity that are building a forward fuselage of one. So there's a wreck in the RAF Museum store that has, I think it's a certain number of frames forward of the bomb bay, and we scan that to give them the 3D data. So we are aware of the Sterling and we're sympathetic to it, but unfortunately we're not considering it at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. There's still quite a few questions here. We've got 10 minutes to go. We gave ourselves an hour and a half for this and cut off time at 1:30. But if you guys are happy, we keep on rattling through a few more.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
And apologies if we don't get to your question. But we certainly plan to do another one of these lives again soon. So please don't give up with your questions. David here. Any plans to extend the quick build range? It's great for starters for young and old. I love it, Dave. Well, there are plans to extend the quick build range. I think every year something has been added to the quick build range. So in short, yes, there are plans to do so. So yeah. Oh, and last year we had some lovely new kits released in quick build, didn't we? The 2 Mustangs. The sort of new retro Mustang car.
Audi R8.
Audi R8. We had the Ford Raptor.
F35.
F35 B, which even if you don't make quick build, definitely get that F85B because it is a lovely model with working with working parts.
And it's even being used by the flying guys on was it Prince of Wales?
Yeah, so I think there's 20 of them. 20 quick build kits on HMS Prince of Wales. They use them as training objects for the guys operating on the carrier deck, which is great. So
None of ours have ended up in the sea, have they?
no, we don't mention that, Luke. We don't mention that. We'll just go through and cut some of these off. They're just some of them are replicating what we've covered off, really. Can we get instructions as online interactive 3D renders? Sometimes it would be handy to see the sort of the other side and rotate the image would be great. Well, there is a conversation internally at the moment about CAD and 3D renders and our website, isn't there? So some of the other brands are looking at it. So I think at the moment we'll let them test it. And then once they've got it up and running, then we'll have a look at the best way that we can use it for you guys, the modelers. Unless you've got any answer to that, but
No,
you've been asked for some CAD data for that, haven't you? So, of course, no promises on when or what that will look like, but it's certainly a conversation that's being had internally. Skimmer would like to see a reduction with the injection spots and move them to a non-visible location.
If only we could everywhere. So it's part of the moulding process that you've got to have ejector pins to push the parts out of the mould at the end of the moulding cycle. It's really difficult with some parts because some parts you can see both sides of it in the finished model. Now obviously the thing people hate most is ejector pins on cockpit sides where it kind of spoils the detail, but you certainly don't want them on the outside of the part. So we do try where we can to do this with what we call ejector points, and those are those little feed gates with little short pins on that you see on some parts, and we've done that more and more recently in an effort to try and get around this problem.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Skimmer. Baron von Zach 4. Are there any plans to reissue some of the iconic classic kits, i.e. the Free Enterprise ferry boats, the SRN-4 hovercraft, and maybe a series along the lines of the Hella Museum kits? But of course, by having the vintage classic range, we have a vessel, if you like, for some of the older tooling kits that we simply would never want to put in a shiny red box with a lovely digital illustration. So it's possible. Free Enterprise, do you want to give them the bad news?
Tools don't appear to exist anymore. In other words, we think they've been lost or broken at some point in the past. So yes, I think that's not going to happen anytime soon.
No, we've clearly we've looked.
Yeah.
We even went to the stage of getting the box front to scan it in so that we could create the artwork until we realised that the tooling wasn't there.
Yeah,
so.
we got quite a way down in that development hole whilst some of our suppliers were looking for the tools, and unfortunately they are gone. They've not been found yet.
The SRN-4 still exists though, it's in the warehouse.
The SRM-4 exists, and the SRM-1 still exists as well. So yes, I think it's pretty fair to say that providing we've got the tooling for these items, then you will see them back in the range at some point. But we're making a conscious effort not to overload that vintage classic range every year. So we've got to keep it. The number of SKUs at a good level, and they are limited kits. We only really do one or maybe two runs of them, and then that's it. We'll hold the tools again for 5-10 years, and you might see it again. But so at some point, if we've got the tool, you're likely to see it in the range. Dan Wood, does the business side of the team ask for a kit or scheme that you've had to turn them down for whatever reason? Am I the business side of the team?
I see that as sales, but yeah, you're in the team, yeah.
So yeah, they do turn me down
Frequently.
frequently.
Because he comes up with such crazy ideas.
Well, you tell me, guys, if you want a 124 scale Buccaneer, then I don't think that's too crazy. So yes, even if it's not me, sometimes the sales guys will ask for kits or schemes that it's just not viable for whatever reason. It could be commercially, it could be the lack of research material out there, it could be for a number of reasons. Equally, if the business side is our shareholders and Lyndon, the big boss here, then we tend to do a little bit more work on it before we say no.
It's worth saying that there is always sort of a business pressure on picking schemes in terms of where we market our products. So you sort of want to appeal to Britain. Mainly, but also the other main markets, so Australia, Germany, the States. So where you can, you want to appeal to them. So it does factor into our picking of schemes and sometimes picking of kits, or especially options within kits.
Thank you, guys. Just going through some of these questions. As I said, a lot of them are replicated, which is fine. We've just got to sift through them. So, question here: are there any plans to introduce a wider range of 135th armoured fighting vehicles?
We're always considering it.
Yeah. So this year we're releasing. Well, we announced 3, didn't we?
Yeah.
The Brumbar, the Stug, and the
Panzer 3.
Panzer 3. Plus the ambulance, which is as we've mentioned, is on its way. It's on the table here. And then that range will not stay still. So that's all really we can say on that. So watch this space.
Indeed.
We've covered that question there. Do you guys realise you'll have dream jobs? Yes. Luke does.
Yeah. You have to pinch yourself every day.
And if we don't, we give him a kick when we walk past him.
It is a dream job, but it doesn't come without the realities of jobs. Like pressure to get things done quickly, pressure to make sure everything we do is commercially sensible, pressure to get it right from our consumers come to that. So yeah, of course it's a dream job really if you love plastic model kits and you love the subject matter, but still a job, and it still comes with everything that jobs come with. We have bosses and all of that stuff. I did ask IT the other day if they could make Excel not work on my machine because I could do without sitting in an Excel spreadsheet for 2 weeks.
That is some people's dreams. They love Excel.
Oh well, they do. I mean, I don't
you're
mind
living their dream.
Yeah, I guess so. I just didn't realise. Matt, dream job?
Well, you need to get a nice meaty offset table to plug into Excel.
Yes. I don't think I'd mind that. It's just.
I think you might have to explain what an offset table is, Matt.
So for those of you who've never come across an offset table is something that is part of the technical drawings that were done in the design process of an aircraft. And in the past, I've gained quite an inordinate amount of enjoyment from translating offset tables into Excel spreadsheets so that I can plot them out into my CAD software. So things like the Spitfire CAD, the Beaufort, Blenheim. So all those kits were done from a huge set of coordinates that the original draftsmen in the 1930s and 40s would have created. Which I find fascinating, but
I'm going to agree with Matt here. There's nothing more satisfying than turning a table full of numbers into a shape that looks like a real aeroplane, and I'm absolutely with him.
Yeah, I've seen that on the Spitfire, and that is amazing.
Yeah.
Just to plot that in and just see it come to life is
Mm.
great to see.
We all
Yeah.
have guilty pleasures, don't we? Ours are just a bit strange.
Yeah.
Find Matt in a dark room with an offset table. Anyway, moving on. We've run out of time. We've come to the end of our sort of allotted time here in the business. In the business. God, that was a turn out for the books. Thank you very much. In the building, we're going to have to leave soon. But thank you, everyone, for your comments over the last couple of days. Your questions, for being part of this with us. It's been fun. I found it fun. Anyway.
Yeah, it's been good.
It's been great fun. We'll definitely do it again. I can't promise when, but thumbs up the video if you like it. Give it a big like. Keep on the comments coming in. It'd be great to pass on your wonderful compliments. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already a subscriber. That helps us, and we'll keep on making fantastic content like this. And it gives the guys around me a huge buzz when they when they've got their heads in offset tables and developing and designing products. So to be part of this and to see your compliments coming through is great. We always share those with the design team, and any photos that you send in as well. We always we've got a Teams group that we share internally, so it all gets seen. Trust me. So I guess that's most probably it. Yeah. So thank you again. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Sprue Talk. Thank you. Cheers.